This is the Buffett Mindset channel where we practice patience and calm wealth building daily. If you enjoy these types of videos, consider liking and subscribing. This will mean a lot to the channel. They will call you arrogant for stepping away, but remember, humility is not staying small so others feel comfortable. Humility is knowing your worth and refusing to waste it. The world will tell you that loyalty means endurance, that standing by people no matter what is noble. But there is a difference between loyalty and limitation. Loyalty that asks you to dim your light is not love, it is fear disguised a friendship. The ones stand understand this truth well. They know that the company you keep is either fertilizer or poison to your destiny. Warren Buffett said, "It's better to hang out with people better than you. Pick associates whose behavior is better than yours, and you'll drift in that direction." He understood that energy is contagious, that the standard of your environment eventually becomes the ceiling of your potential. And so he built his circle not by proximity, but by principle. Not by who he grew up with, but by who he could grow into beside. You must do the same. The man you become is shaped by the conversations you allow, the expectations around you, the energy that fills your space. Spend too long on people who complain, and you'll mistake complaining for thinking. Spend too long on people who doubt, and you'll mistake fear for wisdom. Spend too long on those who mock ambition, and you'll mistake mediocrity for balance. It's not their fault. They are simply playing their role. But it is your responsibility to change the cast. The poor man waits for support. The rich man creates alignment. The rich man doesn't argue with those who doubt him. He simply stops explaining. He doesn't try to convert the small-minded. He outgrows them silently. Doesn't announce his next move. He makes it and lets silence speak for him. Because in the end, the noise of misunderstanding fades, but the sound of results does not. When you begin to rise, your old circle will test you. Some will question your motives, others will guilt you with nostalgia. They'll remind you of who you used to be if your evolution were betrayal. But understand this, every man must choose between being remembered by the past or respected by the future. The ones who truly love you will evolve with you. The ones who don't will reveal themselves by resisting your growth. Their discomfort is not your burden to carry. It is the sound of their own stagnation echoing against your progress. Do not silence yourself to soothe them. Do not dim your fire to protect their shadows. Let the light burn. It must. The right people will adjust to your brightness. The rude ones will retreat. Both are blessings. And when they leave, when the room grows quieter, you will feel something strange. Peace. The peace of being misunderstood but moving correctly. The peace of being alone but aligned. That silence is the soil where clarity grows. In that solitude, you will find the voice you've been drowning out, the voice of your future self. He doesn't crave approval. He doesn't beg to be seen. He builds, he acts, he thinks in laws, not emotions. That voice will become your new compass. Listen to him. He will guide you to rooms where you don't need to shrink, where ambition isn't arrogance, where focus isn't obsession. Those are the rooms where destiny gathers. But you will never find them if you keep looking back at the rooms that keep you comfortable. Buffett didn't become who he is by surrounding himself with flatterers or yes men. He built a fortress of clarity around his mind. He guarded his attention like treasure, but he understood that focus is the seed of fortune. When others partied, he studied. When others chased approval, he chased accuracy. And as the years passed, those who mocked his patience began to envy his peace.
That's how the world always works. First they question your discipline, then they quote it. You must be willing to endure that transition. There will be a time when your solitude feels heavy, when your old friends feel distant, when your new circle still feels foreign. But that discomfort is not loneliness, it is metamorphosis. Every man who transcends must first outgrow his environment. Let this truth set deep into your spirit. You cannot change your life without changing your atmosphere. You cannot become disciplined while surrounded by distraction. You cannot become a builder while surrounded by talkers. You cannot manifest greatness while surrounded by those addicted to mediocrity. Growth is subtraction before it is addition. It begins not by gaining more, but by shedding what no longer serves.
The same way a snake must shed its skin to survive, the man of destiny must shed environments that suffocate his evolution. This shedding is painful, but it feels like loss. But what you're losing is not people, it's permission. Permission to stay the same, permission to remain small, permission to avoid the uncomfortable climb. Let it fall away. You may ask, but what if I end up alone? And I will tell you, then you will finally have room for yourself. The greatest partnerships of your life will not begin until you've made peace with solitude, because only then will you attract those who resonate with your rhythm instead of interrupting it. Only then will you draw allies who are moved by purpose, not convenience. This is what Carnegie did when he built his circle of titans, men who sharpened him, men who challenged him, men who refused to let him stay comfortable. They didn't agree on everything, but they were aligned on one thing: progress. That kind of brotherhood is rare, but it is real, and it begins the moment you stop clinging to those who only remind you of your limits. Understand that elevation demands elimination. You see some more and the fast nickel. Before every new season, nature prunes. The tree loses leaves not cause it dying, but because it preparing for greater fruit. You must do the same. Every conversation that weak your conviction must go. Every habit that slows your focus must die. Every relationship that resists your transformation must be released. Do it with love, but do it without apology. You owe the world your potential, not your permission slips. And once you cut the ties that bind you, you feel lighter, not because you've lost people, but because you've lost weight. The weight of expectation, the weight of false loyalty, the weight of carrying those who never intended to climb. Let them stay on the ground. The air is thinner up here, but it is cleaner. And one day, after the noise fades, you'll wake up in silence and realize you are finally free. Not because you escaped anyone, but because you escaped the version of yourself that kept them close. You will walk into a new season, surrounded not by comfort, but by challenge. You will sit at tables where every conversation stretches you, not soothes you. You will be sharpened by men who see further, who expect more, who live by law and purpose. That is your new environment. That is your new circle. And when that day comes, you will not look back with bitterness. You will look back with gratitude, because every goodbye, every uncomfortable silence, every lonely night was preparation for clarity. They were not holding you back. They were revealing how far you were meant to go. There is a point every man reaches when the noise of others becomes unbearable, not because it's loud, but because it's small. You begin to hear the limits in their laughter, the fear in their jokes, the resignation hidden in their advice. They tell you to slow down, to be realistic, to appreciate what you have. And while gratitude is noble, complacency is not. Gratitude celebrates progress. Complacency worships comfort. The difference is subtle but fatal. You must learn to recognize it before it poisons your spirit. The moment someone tells you that your hunger is too much, that your ambition is excessive, that your restlessness is a flaw, mark that moment well. It is the sound of someone trying to negotiate with your destiny. Do not argue. Do not defend. Simply nod and walk away. Because no matter how much they love you, their ceiling is not your sky. This is what Buffett understood early in life. He realized that his vision was not built to be understood by the crowd. It was built to be executed. The crowd seeks validation. The visionary seeks verification. The crowd wants to be seen. Doing the visionary wants to see results. That while the ones seem detached, they have traded emotional noise for mathematical truth. They don't care about applause. They care about alignment. They do to gather people to feel less alone. They gather people to build more effectively. Buffett's circle was not filled with flatterers. It was filled with thinkers who would challenge his logic. What contaminating his clarity. That is the hood of company you must keep, not those who make you feel good, but those who make you grow sharp. Iron sharpens iron, but only if both pieces are willing to spark. The people who once clapped for your dreams may turn cold when those dreams begin to demand their reflection. Growth has a strange effect. It doesn't just elevate you, it exposes them. Everyone give me earlier and could dasi was maraya. Please forgiveness. Empty the heart and walk away. Because no matter how much they love you, their ceiling is not your sky. This is what Buffett understood early in life. He realized that his vision was not built to be understood by the crowd, it was built to be executed. The crowd seeks validation. The visionary seeks verification. The crowd wants to be seen doing, the visionary wants to see results. That why the ones seen detached, they have traded emotional noise for mathematical truth. They don't care about applause, they care about alignment. They do to gather people to feel less alone. They gather people to build more effectively. Buffett's circle was not filled with flatterers. It was filled with thinkers who would challenge his logic, but contaminating his clarity. That is the head of company you must keep, not those who make you feel good, but those who make you grow sharp. Iron sharpened iron, but only if both pieces are willing to spark. The people who once clapped for your dreams may turn cold when those dreams begin to demand their reflection. Growth has a strange effect. It doesn't just elevate you, it exposes them. Your evolution will remind others of their stagnation, and most will not thank you for it. They'll distance themselves, mock your focus, or quietly hope for your return to mediocrity. Do not take it personally. They are not rejecting you, they are retreating from their own unreal, unrealized potential. Your growth is a mirror, and not everyone can bear their reflection. Let them go with grace. You were never meant to carry their permission. The man who needs to be understood by everyone will be ruled by those who understand nothing. There is power in strategic solitude. The great men of history experienced it. Before the results came, before the recognition came, there was silence. Lincoln walked alone. Carnegie withdrew to Lade. Edison was mocked in isolation. Even Buffett spent decades in quiet rooms, reading, thinking, deciding, while the world rushed past him. What looked like boredom was incubation. What looked like detachment was design. In the silence, they heard what noise had buried their own law, their own rhythm, their own vision. You must do the same. Do not fear the quiet. It is the forge of kings. Every hour you spend alone refining your thoughts is an hour the world will one day call luck. But to the paradox of elevation, the higher you climb, the fewer voices you can take with you. Success narrows your circle by necessity, not by arrogance. At the bottom, everyone talks. At the top, everyone listens. The conversations shift from gossip to strategy, from distraction to direction. The laughter becomes rarer but richer. You will trade volume for value. Do not mourn this. It is the natural order of ascent. The air thins at the summit, not because it cruel, but because it pure. The shallow cannot breathe there. The deep don't need to. When you find yourself feeling alone on that climb, remember, it not loneliness, it filtration. Every step upward purifies your circle until only those who belong remain. The truth is, the people who hold you back rarely need to. Most are simply unaware of what they're doing. They're bound by their fears, their habits, their unexamined beliefs. They don't wake up thinking, I'll limit someone today. They wake up trying to survive, and your ambition threatens their stability. To support you fully, they would have to confront their own stagnation, and that a price few are willing to pay. That's why you cannot wait for unanimous approval to move forward. You must develop the strength to be misunderstood for a season. Every builder must. Every man who would change the world was first called delusional, not because he was wrong, but because he could see what others refused to. And while they mocked him, he worked. While they doubted, he compounded. While they gossiped, he grew. There will come a day when the very people who dismissed you will quote you. They'll tell stories about how they always knew you would make it. Do not resent them for it. Their memory will rewrite your history to soothe their pride. Let it. You will be too busy building the next chapter to correct them. That the quiet revenge of purpose, it doesn't argue, it evolves. When Buffett speaks today, millions listen. But when he began, few cared. His consistency outlasted their noise, and that what you must build, a rhythm so persistent that time itself cannot ignore it. Cutting ties with mediocrity is not cruelty, it's currency. You trade comfort for clarity. You trade validation for velocity. You trade the need to be liked for the power to be effective. That is the true price of greatness, and it always paid in silence. The men who cannot pay it, it feel you selfish. They will say you've changed, and they'll be right. Because you must change. You cannot become new while clinging to what is old. You cannot build empires with hands still tied to approval. The young noise hit me Eve toys banged and well. Boys never great. Man must disappoint someone to fulfill his destiny. The question is, who will you disappoint, them or yourself? You already know the answer. Somewhere deep in your spirit, They're a voice that's been whispering the truth for years. You've ignored it out of guilt, out of fear of being misunderstood, out of love for those who mean well but think small. But that voice has never lied to you. It is the voice of your future self, the man who has already seen what happens if you stay. He knows the cost. He's begging you to move, to stop explaining, to stop waiting, to stop dimming. You owe him your obedience, because the longer you delay, the heavier the chain becomes. You can either rake it now or wear it forever.
What's this like?
And when you finally walk away, and not in anger, not in pride, but in peace, you will understand why the silence feels different this time. It won't feel empty. It'll feel clean. It'll feel like space. Space to build, space to think, space to become. The noise will fade behind you like a storm losing power. And one day, years from now, when your results speak louder than their words there did, you'll smile. Not with bitterness, but with gratitude. Because their resistance was your training. Their doubt was your discipline. Their smallness was the pressure that shaped your precision. They were never your enemies. They were your exam. You passed. Every man who says must at any point come to terms with this truth. Freedom has a sound, and it is quiet. It is the sound of no one telling you who to be. It is the sound of silence between your thoughts, where your conviction finally has room to speak. But that silence frightened most men. They've lived their entire lives in chorus, surrounded by familiar voices, all of them humming the same song: security, safety, sameness. They confuse the noise for belonging and the crowd for truth. But when you step away from that noise, when you begin to move toward your own rhythm, you will feel the initial sting of loneliness. The world will call it isolation, but it is not punishment. It is purification. The noise must leave before the clarity can enter. And once you've endured it, once you've stood alone long enough for your mind to recalibrate, you will find something extraordinary. You never needed them in much, but you thought you did. The 1% are not alone because they're unlovable. They're alone because they're uncommon. They are not isolated by arrogance, but by accuracy. They move differently because they think differently. They no longer seek company for comfort. They seek it for calibration. They choose people who could challenge their thought without clouding their vision. Buffett partnerships were never built on sentiment. They were built on synergy. When he chose Charlie Munger, he didn't look for someone who agreed with him. He looked for someone who would refine him. That how the top 1% move, they don't surround themselves with cheerleaders. They surround themselves with craftsmen, men of discipline, men of depth, men of Machiavelli. Men who can take an idea, sharpen it, and return it stronger than four. That's the difference between a friend and a mirror. A friend fond reflects your comfort, a mirror reflects your flaws. The poor man wants company, the rich man wants correction. The crowd wants laughter, the builder wants leverage. That's why most people can keep pace with you once you begin to grow. They prefer reassurance to reflection. But growth requires truth, and truth offers capriccio. You cannot evolve surrounded by people who never challenge you. Iron cannot sharpen air. You must find iron those few rare individuals whose words feel like friction, whose fence feels like gravity, who see your blind spots before they become failures. And when you find them, keep them close. That is your real wealth. But till is the paradox: before you can attract such people, you must become one yourself. The environment you seek must first exist within you. If you crave a circle of greatness, then your thoughts, habits, and speech must rise to match it. The undisciplined cannot keep the company of kings. The man who complains cannot sit beside builders. The man who gossips cannot walk with giants. So you must first do what the 99% is for, not become the standard for seeking it. Master your focus, guard your words, build your integrity like an empire. Because when you do, you begin to emit a frequency that attracts your equals and repels your distractions. That's not arrogance, it's physics. There is a reason most men never find a circle that elevates them. They never outgrow the one that comforts them. They crave new outcomes but cling to old environments. They pray for elevation but resist separation. In doing so, they confuse loyalty with limitation. They believe they are being faithful when, in truth, they are being bound. You cannot serve two masters, your comfort and your calling. You must choose. Every man who changed history did so by walking away from the familiar. Moses left Egypt, Abraham left his homeland, Carnegie left Scotland, Buffett left the noise of New York for the quiet precision of Omaha. They left not because they hated what they were, but because they loved what they were going more. When you make that decision, the world will test you. It tempts you to return to the comfortable room, to the voices that once soothed your fear of being misunderstood. You will be invited to dinners where your old self still fits, to conversations where your new self cannot breathe. Decline them, politely but firmly. The world doesn't understand that elevation requires oxygen, and oxygen cannot survive in stale air. You will have to breathe differently now. You will have to speak differently. You will have to listen differently. This is the price of transformation, the loss of resonance with the man you once were. But remember, every goodbye is in agreement with destiny. When you release what no longer aligns, the universe responds with what does. People will call you cold. They will accuse you of arrogance. They will whisper that success sates you. But understand this, evolution always affects those who refuse to evolve. They mistake your boundaries for betrayal, your focus for distance, your silence for pride. Let them. Their misunderstanding is proof of your movement. You cannot explain altitude to those who have never left the ground. Your job is not to convince them to climb it, to continue ascending. And one day when they look up and see you at the summit, they will not see arrogance, they will see accuracy. They will realize you didn't abandon them. You simply followed the law of growth. You kept walking when they stopped. You obeyed momentum when they obeyed fear. You must learn to see your environment's sacred space. Guard it, you would guard your wealth, for it had become both the birthplace and the burial ground of your potential. Every conversation either waters your vision or weeds it. Every face you allow near your mind either builds your belief or bends it. The one understand this so deeply that they design their lives to protect it. They choose their cities, their homes, their offices, even their routines with precision. Buffett lives simply not out of frugality, but out of focus. Simplicity is not a lack of taste, it's the architecture of clarity. The fewer decisions you make about trivial things, the more power you have for meaningful creation. The poor man fills his day with noise. The wise man fills it with law. And when that law becomes your compass, you stop chasing validation entirely. You will stop needing to explain why you left certain people behind. You will no longer apologize for pruning your circle. You will understand that it was never personal, it was procedural. Growth is not emotional and mathematical. It requires subtraction before multiplication. Every relationship that resists your expansion is an equation that no longer balances. Do not argue with arithmetic. Let it resolve itself. Those who are meant to multiply your mission will stay. The rest will fade quietly into memory.
And in that quiet, when you finally stand alone, you realize something extraordinary. You didn't lose your people, you found your path. You didn't abandon them, you ascended beyond where they were willing to walk. And maybe one day they'll hear the echo of your steps and decide to follow. But by then, you'll be too focused on the next mountain to look back, because once you taste the air of freedom, you will never crave the comfort of captivity again. There comes a moment somewhere between exhaustion and awakening when you realize that not everyone is meant to understand your vision, and that's not their fault. Most people are not built to see beyond the horizon. They see only the ground beneath their feet. They believe what's visible and mock what's still forming. They can't see your future because it doesn't exist in their world yet. But that is the burden of the visionary. You must believe long before the proof arrives. You must walk with faith in the unseen. You must move through rooms where every voice tells you to turn back and still keep walking. That is how the top 1-1 live.
They are not fearless. They are faithful to the law of cause and effect. They understand that if they plant the right seed, the harvest is inevitable, even if the soil of their surroundings looks barren for a while. Most men stop planting as the people around them stop believing. They confuse consensus for confirmation. They think, if no one else sees it, may it not real. But vision is always lonely in its early stages. It's supposed to be. If it were obvious to everyone, it wouldn't require leadership. The first law of greatness is isolation, not the kind born of bitterness, but of focus. You cannot discover your true power until you've walked through the silence of disbelief. Every successful man has. When Carnegie began building his empire, he faced ridicule from those who thought steel was a fool dream. When Edison spent years perfecting the light bulb, they called him mad.
When Buffett ignored Wall Street noise to invest with discipline, they said he was outdated. Every one of them was told to stop, to slow down, to be realistic. And every one of them smiled, nodded, and kept working. You must develop that same composure.
The ability to hear doubt and not absorb it. The strength to walk alone and not grow bitter. The wisdom to know that isolation is not the enemy, it's the incubator. In the stillness, ideas mature. In the quiet, confidence hard dead. In the absence of applause, discipline becomes muscle. That what the masses never learn, the strength you build in silence will one day make the noise irrelevant. Those who mock you we applaud, not because they change, but because results are the only language they understand. Let your success be their translator. The environment you leave behind will haunt you for a while. You'll remember the laughter, the ease, the comfort. Nostalgia will whisper that you're missing something. It will paint your past in soft colors, hoping you'll forget the chains hidden in the brushstrokes. Don't fall for it. The past is not a home, it's a museum. You can visit it, but you cannot live there. If you linger too long, you become part of the exhibit, a man remembered for what he could bend. That the quiet tragedy of the average, they confuse memory for meaning, comfort for connection, loyalty for love.
But the man who rises must learn to love progress more than people approval. It is not cruelty, it is clarity. You are not abandoning them. You are obeying the toe of your potential. It's strange how the world tests you right after you decide to grow. The moment you draw the line, someone across it. The moment you choose discipline, distraction will call your name. The moment you set your boundaries, guilt will knock on your door. It not commitments, it calibration. The universe is asking, are you serious this time? Every test is proof of readiness. If you hold the line through the discomfort, something remarkable happens. Your environment begins to reconfigure itself. The people who once drained you disappear. The opportunities that once seemed rare start to appear naturally. Your energy changes, and the world responds in time. It's not magic, it's alignment. The same law that governs the tides governs destiny. Whatever you move toward you. The 1% live by this principle. They never chase, they align. They don't beg for attention, they attract it. They don't plead for recognition, they command it through results. They don't force loyalty, they earn it through consistency. That is why they beam calm while others panic. They are not reacting to life, they are orchestrating it. When Buffett invests, he does not care about the daily noise of the market, because he has trained his mind to see in decades, not days, that the difference between those who play and those who build. The player moves for applause, the builder moves for legacy. You must decide which you are. When you finally break free from those who hold you back, you discover something paradoxical. The fewer people you have to please, the more peace you possess. Your time will no longer be consumed by defending your decisions. Your energy will no longer be drained by explaining your dreams. You will no longer feel the need to justify your hunger to the full-bellied. That freedom will feel unnatural at first because it's new, but you adjust to it. You begin to see how much of your life was spent trying to earn permission to be yourself. And once that realization hits, there is no going back. You'll start protecting your peace the way others protect their wealth, because now you know they're the same thing. The day will come a morning when you wake up and realize you haven't thought about them in months. The ones who doubted you, mocked you, questioned you. You'll remember their names, but not their weight. Their voices will sound distant, bleak echoes from another life. And that's exactly what they are, a past life you outgrew. That when you'll understand that success isn't about rising above others, it's about rising beyond yourself. The old you needed their validation. The new you doesn't even need their understanding. The man who once sought applause now walks in silence, knowing the sound of his own steps is enough proof. The final stage of freedom is gratitude. Gratitude not just for the people who helped you, but for the ones who resisted you, because they made you sharp. They forced you to clarify. They revealed what was weak and what was real. Every obstacle, every critic, every betrayal was training. Without them, you would have stayed soft. Without them, you would have settled. They taught you to build from within. And now you look back from the height of discipline, you'll see that nothing they did truly held you back. It all built the foundation beneath your feet.
But then who reach this understanding stop resenting the past. They stop proving themselves. They simply live, build, and repeat the law. Because at the end of every journey, after the battles and the noise, there's always a quiet moment. One that sounds like an old cowboy sitting by the fire, looking out at the rain, whispering to himself, it was all worth it. That the sound of peace earned through purpose, that the silence of the 1%, they're a kind of wisdom that only arrives after solitude, the kind that it can't be taught in books or borrowed from men. It comes when the noise dies, when the faces fade, and you are left alone with your thoughts long enough to meet yourself. Most men never get there. They fill every hour with distraction, every silence with chatter, every moment with noise. The silence terrifies them. It forces them to confront the one man they can't escape. But the one way from that quiet in it, they don't run from that silence, they build in it. They treat it as sacred ground. In that stillness, they learn to separate the useful from the meaningless, the timeless from the temporary.
They stop asking, what do others think? And start asking, what does this build? And when you start thinking that way, every word, every habit, every choice begins to carry weight. That when your life becomes deliberate, you stop chasing every opportunity that glitters because you realize not on gold is meant for you. You stop running after people who don't reciprocate because you understand that value is never found in pursuit, but in presence. You begin to understand what Buffett meant when he said the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. The poor man says yes to approval. The rich man says no for alignment. One builds his peace on popularity. The other builds it on principle. And those principles are not emotional, they are mathematical. The one point live by internal equations that never fail. They measure every choice against their definite purpose. If it adds clarity, they keep it. If it adds confusion, they cut it. That's why they mean ruthless to the untrained eye. It not ruthlessness, it precision.
A sculptor must strike marble to reveal beauty. A man must strike habits, people, and patterns to reveal purpose. Every strike looks harsh until the masterpiece emerges. And if you are to rise, you must learn to wield that chisel yourself. You must stop mistaking guilt for morality. Cutting away what weak wet you is not cruelty, it is craftsmanship. Look around at the world and you'll see the proof. The average man trades his fire for friendship. He hides his hunger to stay relatable. He builds his life on approval and wonders why it collapses when that approval fades. He seeks to be understood rather than to be effective. But the top one fan, they move differently. They are not chasing connection, they are cultivating alignment. They understand that friendship without shared grand is a detour. Every conversation that doesn't feed your purpose will eventually feed your doubt. Every room that celebrates comfort will eventually crucify change. You must decide which you serve, your connection to people or your connection to purpose, because one will survive only at the expense of the other. As you begin to walk this path, the separation becomes visible in everything.
You'll see it in the eyes of those who once walked beside you, how they start to question your pace, your tone, your ambition. You'll hear it in their words, soft but heavy. You've changed. They'll mean it, that criticism, but you must hear it as a confirmation. Change is the proof of growth. A man who is not changing is not evolving, he is decaying. Let them talk. The tree does not apologize for growing beyond the fence. It simply reaches toward the sun and lets time do the explaining. And yet, understand this true elevation is not rebellion. It is refinement. You do not rise to prove them wrong. You rise to prove yourself right. The energy of resentment burns quickly. The energy of discipline injures. The goal is not to escape people, but to elevate your standard so high that only the right people can reach you. Buffett never ran from critics. He simply kept thinking at a level they couldn't interrupt. That is your model. Don't argue with noise. Outlast it. Outbuild it. Let your results become the silence that silences them. You'll notice something else along this path. Your definition of wealth will begin to change. At first, you'll think it about money. Then you'll realize it about mastery. Wealth isn't what you have, it's what you can control. And the first thing a man must learn to control is himself. The richest men on earth are not those with the most possessions, but those with the fewest compulsions. They don't chase every impulse, every pleasure, every opportunity. They live by rhythm, not reaction. Their days are deliberate. Their minds are structured. They don't waste time debating what has already been decided by their principles. That's what discipline really is. Not restriction, but rhythm. A rhythm so consistent that chaos can't find a place to hide. This is what separates the good from the great. Good men work hard. Great men think clear. Good men chase comfort. Great men chase conviction. Good men are shaped by their environment. Great men shape it. Every empire begins in the mind of a man who refused to let his surroundings define him. He may have started in a small room in a quiet town, surrounded by doubt, but he used those limits as his leverage. He saw what others called obstacles, the raw material for greatness. That's how you must think. Your environment is not your sentence, it's your syllabus. Every challenge is at instruction, every limitation is at assignment. The question is not, why is this happening to me, but what is this teaching me? The one borrow one discomfort, they extract data from it. And so, when you feel the pull to return to your old ways, remember what you're trading. You're not trading people, you're trading frequency. You're not leaving love, you're leaving limitation. You're not losing friends, you're losing friction. The ones who are meant for your next level health reappear later, stronger, sharper, aligned. The rest will remain behind, still talking about the man you used to be. Let them. They are speaking about a ghost while you are ill to kingdom. One day, long after you've moved on, you'll hear your old name meant in rooms that once ignored you. They'll speak of you with both envy and respect. They'll say, he disappeared one day, and now look at him. They won't understand that you didn't disappear. You simply ascended beyond their frequency. And when that day comes, when your name becomes synonymous with excellence, when your work speaks louder than their words or did, you feel a quiet gratitude. Not pride, not revenge, gratitude. Because the resistance they gave you was the friction you needed to spark the fire. And you sit there, maybe under a soft light, maybe with rain tapping on the window. You'll realize that everything you lost was replaced by something better. The noise became focus. The guilt became strength. The loneliness became peace. And the same world that once said, who do you think you are, will now whisper, how did you do it? And you'll smile. Not with arrogance, but with understanding. Because now you know you were never being held back by them. You were being trained by them. Every obstacle was a mirror. Every delay a sharpening. Every goodbye a preparation. That is how the top 1% think. They don't run from resistance, they refine through it. They don't resent their past, they repurpose it. They don't seek applause, they seek accuracy. When they find it, when the last chain breaks and the last voice fades, they do not shout. They simply stand taller, breathe deeper, and whisper the one truth every free man eventually learns. It was me all along. The man who finally understands that truth, the truth that it was him all along, crosses that invisible threshold that few reach. Because now he realizes that every excuse, every betrayal, every setback was not an attack from the world, but a mirror from the mind. The environment was not the enemy. It was a reflection of his standards. The people who held him back only had the power he gave them. The moments that broke him only broke the parts that were never meant to last. When that realization settles into your bones, something profound happens. You stop blaming, and you start building. You stop wishing, and you start working with precision. You stop seeking saviors, because you finally understand that you were designed to save yourself. That is the foundation of a power, the unshaken ownership of your own evolution. When you accept this, the world stops feeling chaotic. Everything begins to move with rhythm and reason. You start to see patterns where others see problems. You understand that the man who takes responsibility takes control. And control is not about dominating others. It's about mastering response. You can't control the market, but you can control your discipline. You can't control the weather, but you can control your routine. You can't control who doubts you, but you can control what you build while they talk. That is how the 1% separate themselves. They play the only game they can win consistently, the inner one. The one where mastery of emotion, focus, and thought becomes wealth beyond numbers. It's why Warren Buffett wakes up and reads for hours before touching a single decision. And not avoiding work, he aligning his mind. He understands that the brain is the first investment of the day. The average man rushes into action because he fears stillness. The wise man prepares. It respects cause-effect. Every minute you spend sharpening your mind saves you 10 dull hours later. That's how wealth multiplies, not through capital, but through clarity. The man who knows why he moves will always outlast the man who only knows how. Their reason the richest, most disciplined men live simple lives. Simplicity is not poverty, it is power refined. Buffett eats the same breakfast, drives the same car, wears the same clothes, not because he lacks options, but as he knows decisions drain energy. The Kellermans automate everything trivial so they can focus their power on what compounds. They don't waste bandwidth debating every purchase, every conversation, every distraction. Their life is a system. Their thoughts are scared. Their emotions are trained because they know that consistency compounds faster than intensity. It's not what you do once that changes your life. It's what you repeat without fail. And that is the secret most men miss. They try to sprint their way to success, burning through motivation with cheap fuel. But motivation fades, rhythm enters. When you learn to work from rhythm, you become unstoppable. You no longer rely on excitement to move. You rely on principle that when you begin to see yourself changing at the cellular level, You start to wake with purpose before you even remember your dreams. Your habits begin to move on autopilot. Your words begin to match your vision. And slowly, without grand announcement or applause, you start to become the man you once undescribed in journals. That transformation is not loud. It happens in the quiet hours, the 4 a.m. grind when the world is still asleep, the evening reflection when you rewrite your aim before bed, the silent correction when you choose discipline over distraction for the 1,000th time. No one will see it happening, but everyone will feel its results. Because energy doesn't lie, the world begins to rearrange itself around your new frequency. Opportunities that once ignored you start showing up. People who align with your standards start appearing. You'll begin to notice that luck isn't random. It's rhythm meeting readiness. When you operate from that rhythm long enough, life stops feeling like a struggle, not because it gets easier, but because you've grown stronger. The same problems that used to rake you now serve as weights for your mental gym. The betrayals that used to sting now simply teach. The delays that once frustrated you now feel like design. You begin to see that the universe was never against you, it was training you. Every obstacle was a test of precision, every heartbreak a lesson in boundaries, every setback a mirror for your alignment. You needed those seasons of confusion to build discernment. You needed those losses to learn detachment. You needed those wrong people to recognize what the right ones feel like. That when the lessons finally settle, when the noise fades and the pattern reveals itself, you'll look back and realize that not a single step was wasted. Every sleep-late light, every empty room, every painful goodbye was carving you into a vessel strong enough to hold the abundance you prayed for. Because wealth without wisdom destroys. Power without perspective corrupts. The universe had to rake the weak wakes before it could trust you with strength. That is why the one do not resent their struggle, they revere it. They understand that adversity is the architect of identity. So when you sit there, perhaps with your notebook open and a quiet fire burning, understand this moment for what it truly is, a graduation. You have outgrown the man you once were. You have shed the voices that once held you hostage. You have walked away from the crowd that feared your light. You have built something that cannot be bought, a mind that obeys law, not emotion. That is freedom. That is wealth. That is the taint where you stop surviving and start reigning. Now, as the rain falls and the night grows still, remember the command you once whispered in your darkest hour. If they do not grow with thee, they cannot go with me. That was not a slogan, it was scripture. It was the declaration that separated the old you from the new. Keep it close. Repeat it every morning before the world wakes. Speak it not with bitterness, but with certainty, because the man who obeys his own law becomes unshakable. He no longer seeks the crowd, he becomes the compass. And when he finally looks in the mirror, he no longer sees the dreamer. He sees the builder, the king, the man who was meant to rise.